Good evening, good evening, my wonderful people. How are you doing? How are you doing? You are all welcome. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and thank you also for waiting a little bit. We are live. Please call in the cavalry, call in the troops. We are live. It's discovery time once again. Thank you for tuning in. Our topic today is when is enough enough? When is enough enough? Um, sometimes we say, yeah, we are going to, when you cross my boundary, that's it. But when do we actually communicate it? And how do we communicate it? And um, how do we even know when our boundaries are, how do you know, like, okay, you've reached, this is my limit, this is my limit. If you go beyond that, like, that's it. So I want us to discuss about it. Please call in the Calvary. We are live. I'm sorry for the few minutes delay. But thank God we are here, we are live. Welcome, all of you. How are you all doing? It's been another week. Time flies, time flies, and wait for no one. So, you are all welcome. Welcome to another week. Welcome to another session of Discovery Time. When is enough enough? Help us do what we do best. Help us to call in the troop. If you have any questions, if you have any contribution, please let us hear from you. Send it in through the chat, and then we'll also read it out so that we can all learn together. Thank you once again for tuning in um, for Discovery Time. I want us to make it a bit interactive. So please, I am pleading on you all to help to share, calling the Calvary, and let people know are that we are alive. You know, um, calling the Calvary as you come in, and let us know. Let us hear from you. Where are my people? I'm waiting for you guys. Right. So when is enough enough? When is enough enough? You know, I made these presentations with statements that I want to discuss on, and um, if you are there, please let me hear from you. If you are there, please let me hear from you. Good evening. Good evening. How are you all doing? Thank you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in. So let me hear from you. Um, we are live. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in. We are live, and when is enough enough? So I'm going to read out some statements, and just tell me, do you agree with it or you don't agree with it? We are going to discuss on each of the statements, um, so that we will learn from each other and, grow as we learn. All right. So let me hear from you if you are in before I go into the statements. If you are there, let me hear from you and say, hello, Ma, I am here. Hello, sis, I am here. Let me hear from you. Thank you so much. I hope you all have a wonderful week. So, statement number 1. I'm going to share my statements and I hope you see them. Statement number one concerning boundaries. If you agree with it, you say, yes, I agree with it, and then you elaborate, or, I'm going to be playing two hearts here because no one is here to argue with me. Um, so, statement number one, what are boundaries? Well, this is a question, it's not a statement, but what are boundaries? Because most of the time we discuss and we say, oh, when my boundary is reached, then I will, this and that and that. But what actually are boundaries? Boundaries to me are, it's the image here like a fence, and a fence that we have around ourselves, and it's like a wall that you build, and when someone go over that wall, you're like, that person is trespassing, right? And so boundaries are also, if we are to talk about it in country wise, they are used to um demarcate, this land is for that neighbor, and from here to here it's for that neighbor. And so boundaries clearly give a beginning of something and an ending of something. That's what boundary is to me. Boundary signifies, if you come here, between here and here is my space, and that side is your space. And so for you to come into my space, I need to give you the permission. If I don't give you the permission to come into my space, then you're trespassing. But if I give you the space, if I give you the liberty, then you're no longer trespassing. So then the question becomes, if I give you the space and you come in, when then do I say, hey, now you are trespassing? When then do I now say, look, I know I gave you the space. I know I allowed you to come to the other side of the fence. But right now, you are trespassing. When does it become um, enough? So that's one way of looking at boundaries. You give the permission for someone to come in. Like the fence, we have walls. And if someone wants to come further, you need to open a door for them. Otherwise, it's illegal. That person or whatever that is trying to, cross over without a permission is crossing or doing it illegally, right? They are not going or following, the due process, a due procedure. So you now feel like, hey, my space have been violated one way or the other. So boundaries are a set, for me, a set of values that you impose on yourself. Yeah. They are a set of values, they are a set of principles that you now say, this is what I'm going to live by. It helps you to set a standard for yourself and be like, this is my standard, and that's where my boundary is. That's my limitation. And so if I allow someone to come closer or to come within that space, it is me allowing them, and it's within my standard as well. Once it goes over, or it's no longer going according to my standard, then I need to draw a line somewhere. Yeah. So there are set of principles that help you set standards through which or by which you live. And so anyone coming close to you, anyone coming to your side of the boundary must understand this. If they don't, then there is a problem. So you need to understand what boundaries are for you. And for you to be able to know where or what your boundaries are, I believe also that, um, excuse me, I believe also that we will need to communicate effectively what those boundaries are. Because sometimes it's easy to say, you are crossing my boundary. You are crossing my boundary, but without letting the person know, or without um, letting them communicating clearly what those boundaries are. So we will have this tendency of saying, "Oh, my boundary has been uh, breached, violated. There have been an illegal entrance." But how do you know, or how how do you avoid that if you have not effectively communicated that? This is my boundary. Let's take neighbors, for example, sharing um, a fence, or neighbors that normally you should know this where my land ends, this is where yours begin. If you don't take care and it's not clear, one will always be crossing the other because the boundaries have not been clearly set, right? So if the wall has not been built clearly to demarcate, this is my side and this is your side, your good evening of young, nice to see you. Yes, I see you. You're welcome. How are you doing? You're welcome. So if you don't clearly communicate both sides, there is always going to be a problem. One, all of you, or one of you is always going to feel like my side or my boundaries are crossed the whole time, like there is no respect for my boundaries. So how do we effectively communicate what your boundaries are? To effectively communicate what your boundaries are, the first question that we ask, what are boundaries? You need to be able to answer them, because you cannot say the whole time my boundaries are being violated if you've not identified what your boundaries are. If you have not clarified for yourself what are my boundaries, then it's going to be difficult for you to communicate it as well effective, communicate it effectively to say, hey, this is the standard. This is my boundary. Here is where I draw the line. We first of all need to understand what are our boundaries, and so that we can be effective in communicating it. Communicating it. How or why, or this is what I don't like, or this is what I like, as I'm allowing you inside my safe space. Remember, boundaries are set to protect us, to guide us. And so, if you are allowing someone inside the fence, inside the wall, inside to come to your safe space, is because you are trusting them. You are trusting them that they will not abuse the liberty that you are giving them, that they will not go beyond um, the hand that you have extended. So there is a trust there, that you have trusted them or trust them, that you have allowed them inside your safe space, your safe zone, so that they don't what cross, they don't go overboard. It's like, you know inviting someone into your home, because that is also another thing. The outside of your door is a gate, it's a boundary. And when you open the door, you are inviting the person inside your safe space, and you are trusting them that they are going to treat that safe space with respect. They are going to treat that safe space with honor and dignity. They are going to uphold the same standard that you uphold. But again, you need to communicate this clearly to them. It has to be communicated clearly. Now, with human interactions, we pick up things. We don't clearly say, now this is my boundary. When you are dealing with people, you pick it up as you are interacting. But sometimes some people don't really pick up things. And also, sometimes it's not easy to try and decode people. And so communication is so, so important when it comes to understanding boundaries. It's so important to communicate clearly and say, these are my boundaries, or these are the values, the standard that I live by, and I would like you to respect it. And vice versa, the other person will also say, yes, look, this is my limitation, these are my boundaries. Here is where I extend, the freedom or the invitation to come to my safe space. It has to be clear. And there are some things you yourself you pick up along the way. You start discovering what your boundaries are along the way. Though you have your standards, though you have, but when is enough is when you are in interaction, when you are in communication, when you are dealing with people, that's when you now start to realize or know yourself even better. Like, here I thought was my boundary, but it's like I need to extend it. Or I thought my boundary was that far, but it's actually not that. So it's in interaction that you also discover the limitations that you, or the height that you can take, that you can say enough is enough. That is only when you also can discover it. Boundaries again are set of, this is, I wish I had more people, because this is a statement that I want us to say, do we agree to it or not? Do we agree to it or not? um do we agree to this statement or not? I'm sorry, I'm trying to get the right size. I think this is too big. Okay. So, do we agree to this statement or not? For you to set a boundary, you must know yourself first. So, from all the explanation that I gave, for you to set boundary, you must know yourself first. I think it's just, it goes without explanation. Um, you cannot set boundaries if you don't know yourself. And you get to know yourself more and more as you interact with others. That's when you also start realizing some certain things, like, oh, okay, that I thought I could handle more, but apparently that's where my limit reach. Or, um, wow, I'm surprised I can actually handle more than I thought. So you need to know yourself so that you can handle or set healthy boundaries. And then you will be able to also say when enough is enough. When is someone toiling or abusing the limitation or the freedom, the liberty that you have given them? When is someone playing around with it? Good evening. As you come in, help us do what we do best. Help us to spread, help us to call in the Calvary. Thank you all so much. I would love to have some more interactions, so please help us do what we do best. Thank you for calling in the Calvary. You are blessed. So you need to know yourself first before you can effectively communicate whatever boundary that you have set, whatever principles that you uphold, and based on that you have set your standards that you want to live by. You need to know yourself first. Self knowledge is so important in everything that we do, and so you also then know how to effectively deal with anything that crosses that boundary. All right, this one says, it is important to set boundaries in a relationship. I would have loved to have yes or no here. It is important to set boundaries in a relationship, yes or no? Left to me, I'll say yes. In a relationship, is in every relationship, be it parents, friends, um, spouses, every relationship. It's important to set boundaries. Why? I think it's because it will keep the relationship healthy, because you treat each other with respect, and you will also keep each other accountable. So whenever someone crosses the line, you hold them accountable for their actions. And it's healthy. It needs to be done because we all need to be accountable for our actions, our deeds, our words. As a parent, it's my duty. As a parent, it's my duty to set clear boundaries for my children. It gives them what? Structure. They know within this frame I can maneuver, and they are protected within that frame. If they go beyond that frame, they will feel the consequences. And it goes, I think, for all of us, because the world operates in frames. There is nowhere in the world that you, even within countries, you have boundaries. But every relationship, be it the boss, co-worker, whatsoever relationship, you need boundaries to protect that relationship and to keep that relationship healthy. So boundaries are important. They serve as protection within that framework. You are protected due to the rules and regulations that governs that boundary. You are protected. Within that frame, you can operate, you can move, you can do whatsoever within that frame. You go beyond that, it becomes a problem. And so I think it's really important to set boundaries, healthy boundaries in relationships, no matter which kind of relationship. It's important to set boundaries. Without that, you have constant, constant chaos. Either one person is getting all that they want, and the other is giving in also too much, and so therefore the boundary of the other is always, always, always just the other person does not have any boundary, and so there is no respect. The other person feel unworthy, feel unseen, feels not honored in any way. It becomes a problem. It gives both emotional stress, emotional problem, depressions. Physically, also, one can get sick from it if you are constantly trying to be like, I need my boundaries respected and stuff like that. You can also, due to the emptiness and the sadness and all that you are carrying, the bitterness as well, you can become sick. So it's so important to set healthy relationships. I mean, healthy boundaries in relationship, because it keeps the relationship safe, and it also keeps the people within the relationship um, healthy and safe as well. Good evening. You are all welcome. Thank you for tuning in. All right. My next statement, and please, if you agree or you don't agree, just let me hear from you. If your friend or partner crosses a boundary, it's best to talk to them about it. Do you agree to it or not? If your friend, co worker, colleague, spouse cross a boundary that you have set and say, this is my boundary, if they cross it, it's always best to talk about it. Yes or no? Because some people might be like, oh, well, I don't think talking about it is going to solve anything. Um, because they are not going to change anyway, or they are not going to um, do anything about it. While I don't know if that is the right approach, anyways. In my own opinion, I'll say yes, it's always important to talk about it. It's important to talk about your the boundary that has been crossed and where and how it has been crossed. If the other person does not hear it and does not do anything with it, it's on that person. It says more about that person and not about you. So why is it important to talk about it? Otherwise, the person will not know. And so, assuming that the person know or should know, that's one thing that we always do a lot, assumption. Assuming that the person knows or should know that your boundary has been breached or crossed is not always the best case. You can only assume that if you are in a long term relationship, or like your friend knows you so well that they are supposed to know. Yes, then you can assume that. But when you are getting to know each other at the beginning stage, when you are just, um, interacting with each other, you don't know each other that well, then it's not healthy to assume that they should know that they have crossed a boundary if you don't openly communicate it to them. But when you have communicated and communicated and communicated, and they still continue to cross that boundary, then yes, it's not only time to not talk, because I have experienced that when you start when you stop talking, it's maybe to the other party that keeps crossing your boundary. They might think, oh yes, finally the person is not talking about it anymore, but it's actually a sign that that person is um, moving on somehow, is kind of like had enough of that, that they have built a new set of boundaries. And so maybe their level of tolerance has shifted, absolutely, but that that point of enough is enough is almost near, it's almost there. It's like they are almost reaching that point that they are saying enough is enough. When they stop talking, the other party should not see it as, okay, I've gotten them, because that's when it actually starting. That's when that enough is enough starts sitting or starts getting there. The crack starts being visible. So it's really important to continue talking. But when you've known each other for that long and the other partner is not hearing what you're saying, then yes, um, it becomes a problem. And to me, then there is clearly a sign of no respect, no regard. And that is not what a healthy relationship looks like or should be. There should be a balance. There should be a balance of um, you giving in and I giving in, and we give in a little bit of our boundaries that we have set up so that we can accommodate each other. Because if we have a relationship and there's always this wall between, it becomes a problem. And so, for the wall not to be a problem between us, we need to work our way around it. And that is with understanding and in open communication, to get to that level of understanding, to work around that wall. If not, it will always be a problem. And so not talking will always lead to, that problem. So let there be an open communication between all parties in whatever relationship that you are in, not only spouse, not only romantic relationship, but in every relationship, even as a parent. Let there be open communication with the children so that they will also learn what healthy boundaries means. Okay. Boundaries in general keep people safe. I think I in my introduction I spoke also about that. That boundaries are set up to keep people safe. It's a safety net that we build, whether it is the fence around our houses. We build it because we want to be safe, whether it is the boundaries that separate one country from the other. We build it because we want to clearly say this country is A and that country is B, and if you want to cross, you need the right documentations to cross, right? Boundaries in a relationship shares, it's the same. Your children, you give them boundary to keep them safe. Within that, they can operate freely. Once they break the rule, they will face the consequences. Within every boundary, you are safe. It's there to protect. It's there to keep the people there safe. And so when you open the door for someone to trespass, or with invitation let them in, you are actually saying, well, I trust this person, or I am willing to trust this person to allow them into my safe space. And so, yes, it's generally meant to keep us safe. It's generally meant to um, protect. But when the protection layer falls down, then it becomes a problem. Okay, our next statement says disagreements are part of every healthy relationship. Disagreements are part of every healthy relationship. I think we don't need to elaborate too much on this. Why did I put this statement in? Because I see most of the young ones now having this idea like, well, when you disagree too much, it's like um, it's not a healthy relationship. There is a difference between arguing and constantly arguing and fighting and disagreeing. I mean, disagreement is not the lack of loyalty. Let me put it this way. It is not because you disagree concerning some certain things that you cannot and should not be in a relationship. It depends on what you are disagreeing on. And sometimes it is in the disagreements you get to know each other's boundaries. You get to understand each other's boundaries. You get to respect each other's boundaries. If you never disagree with each other and everything is okay, superb, I don't know, someone is then hiding something. Because even between siblings you disagree. You disagree with your blood, so to always say, oh, we agree on everything, it's either one person is always giving in and it slowly will somehow eat up, or you are living in a fantasy. You are in a very fantastic relationship, but I believe the most healthiest relationship has disagreements in them. Like I said, it is not the relationship of constantly arguing and fighting. No, 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 no. If you're constantly arguing and fighting, then please, you need to go and sit down and talk about your relationship very well. But disagreement is just normal. It's part of it. You don't have to agree with each other on everything, but you do need to come together to reach an agreement for there to be peace. So, in your disagreement, you can find a common ground. You can find a ground and you say, okay, we disagree on A, B, and C, but here is where we find our commonality. Here is where we agree. And so we work on what we agree. You cannot say, well, I disagree with you, and so I disagree with you, Pam, finish. We are not compatible. That is not what it's. A healthy relationship should leave room for disagreement. A healthy relationship should be able to um, argue and disagree with each other and still be each other's parties. You should still be each other's, best friends. Yes, because disagreement is not disloyalty. Disagreement is not um the lack of also empathy. It is not the lack of empathy, because it is in your disagreements, when you look for that common ground, you empathize with each other. You say, okay, I understand your point of view. I understand your point of view. And fine, okay, so let's leave it as it is, or based on what we both think, maybe this will be the best thing. In your disagreement, you look for the common agreed, uh, or the, what binds the two of you together, respecting each other's views and opinions, not disregarding the other and saying, well, I don't agree with you because I don't understand path, that's it. No. So disagreement should be and must be part of every healthy relationship. It should not be ignored, or it should not be seen as, well, we disagreed on this and that, therefore, again, depending on what you disagree on. If you disagree on the very, like, your principles, boundaries are built on principles. If the disagreement is on the principles, then you need to check. Then you have every right to check things. But if the disagreement is not on the very principles or values that you hold dear, but on how to do things, or different opinion on politics or what, that is that is your personal take. As long as it is not on your values, it is not on your principles, you are not selling out on your principles, I don't think you have a very that should be an issue. And that should not be allowed in your relationship. It should have a place in that relationship. Otherwise, the relationship itself becomes a threat. Okay, let's see what the next statement has for us. If someone crosses your boundary, you get to cross theirs. Do we agree with this statement? If someone crosses your boundary, then it gives you the permission to cross theirs. Some might say yes, because they first did it, so you can also cross. But I will disagree with this statement, because, again, boundaries are what set of standards. I mean, yeah, principles, values that you live on, and based on that, you set your standard. Um, if someone trespass or crosses your boundary, and you have a set of standard that you live by, I don't think then you can be like, okay, then I'm going to cross theirs, because then you are lowering your bar, you are lowering your standard, you are coming to that level of maybe the other. And so, what makes you then different from the other? It's like you are retaliating for them doing something to you. I don't know. Is it the healthiest way to go about things? We know revenge never really pays. If anything, it damages more. So if you're going to revenge because they cross your boundary, so you are going to cross theirs, it's, it doesn't speak well then of you. And it should then, you should ask yourself then, what are your values in the first place? What principles were you holding? What principles are you, living by, that you are saying my boundaries have been violated, crossed, so I'm going to cross the other? In my opinion, no, I know others might disagree. We disagree to agree. So that's what we are talking about, right? We disagree to agree. But in my opinion, if someone crosses your boundary, I don't think you should go ahead and cross theirs, because then it doesn't then speak well. The example that I will give is like if you see a madman acting mad on the street and come and stand in front of you and is acting very mad, are you going to follow the madman to also act mad? I don't think so, because then what makes you sane and what makes the madman mad? you know so you will not fall um for that, or you not lower your level, your standard for that. So don't cross that boundary as well. Keep to your own. Keep that standard. That's what makes you stand out. That's what makes you unique, and that is what will also make you the victor, the overcomer and a victor at the end of the day. All right, what do we have with the next statement? The next statement says, um, treating someone, no, then we don't read it well. Treating someone disrespectfully is crossing a boundary. I would say yes. If someone treats you with disrespect, obviously they are crossing a boundary. They are crossing the boundary of respect. But then again, we can ask ourselves, what made it disrespectful? Everyone has their standard. What made it disrespectful? And where, when, and how will you communicate to them that, look, this is you cross a boundary here, and I don't like what you did, or I don't appreciate you crossing my boundary, and I will appreciate it if you will respect me. Communication again is very important. You need to let them know when and how they have crossed a boundary, when and how it's disrespectful to you. Because we all come from different backgrounds. Let's not forget. We all come from different backgrounds. We all come from different upbringing, different cultures. What might seem as disrespect to one is not. Some time ago, I gave the example of when I came to Belgium newly, and my teacher then was thinking I was disrespecting her by not looking directly into her, face to face, because I would slightly look down each time she was then talking. I would just look down as a form of respect, but to her it was disrespectful. No, this is teacher student relationship. And so, but where I come from, looking directly into the eye of an adult, and especially someone in leadership position, or um, that level, was a sign of disrespect. So again, if you don't communicate it, and if you're not clear, and try to understand where that person is coming from and where you are, it will always cause a problem in the relationship, no matter which relationship. So with this teacher, for example, I was thinking I was disrespecting her by slightly bending my head down, looking down as a form of respect as she's talking to me. She was seeing it, and the whole time calling me out, like, hey, and you are not, and I'll be there like surprised. And instead of working with understanding, because I will act like surprised, she would then also see it as I'm acting out, like, and she's there, she's still acting out like, no. So it took a whole lot of communication and explanation for me to get to her to understand that, look, where I come from, looking directly into the eye is not something that we do, especially with, we do it with our age mates, obviously, but not with someone that's older than us, or especially a teacher. We always bend down a bit, look down a bit, so that it's a form of respect. If you don't communicate that, how are they going to know? And it's true that the teacher came to realize, okay, it's not like that. But it took a long time, and it took a lot of punishment for me to endure, a lot of insult for me to endure. With me, my boundaries were always then well, as a student, I don't know if you can say you have boundaries, but then it was always being, crossed, violated, because the other thought that I was respecting her, I was disrespecting hers. So for someone, when we say disrespecting, that disrespecting and respect need to be understood for both parties, all parties in a relationship, the same way. Whatever boundary that you have, let it be understood in the same way that the other party understands things. And you can only get through that with open communication. Because it's easy to say this person disrespected me. Well, you can say so if you know you share the same value and understanding of the values, if you understand the same things, because respect here was misunderstood. How I, from my background as a Ghanaian, being brought up, understood respect was completely different from the Western way of looking at respect. So, with my understanding and my boundaries that I had set, it becomes problematic. And so we had to redefine things within that relationship that we were in, the teacher, student, whatsoever, friendship around me that we were in, had to define the values so that we can have the same understanding and have healthy, relationship based on that. So it's very important to take the time to communicate openly about what it means. What does this mean to me? And how do you understand that? And normally the other party, if the other party, want also to build a healthy relationship, they'll also open up and say, okay, I understood it like this. And then the two of you work together to come to a common ground. So it's mean disagreement is not bad. It's just that you need to work it out to come to the common ground of understanding so that you can move on. And there will be less friction, less agitation within the relationship because you have a common ground, you have a common understanding on some certain values. If not, it's always going to cause problem. So the next statement says, um, if someone okay this is if someone crosses your boundary, they need to be punished. If someone crosses your boundary, they need to be punished. Yes or no? Well, you cross my boundary, so I punish you. Well, it depends, I think. Take the relationship of parents. Obviously, when children crosses the boundaries, like I said, there are consequences for them. So they need and they must and they face those consequences. Whatever you do, there will always be, there is action reaction. And so whatever you do, you are always going to get the reaction from the other. Now, must they be punished? I think it depends on the type of relationship. Like I said, with daughter, I mean, with parent, children, it's a different relationship. Teacher, student, it's a different relationship. And so, whenever a boundary is crossed, in a way, depending on what type of boundary was crossed, there is a consequence. I mean, there are some consequences to that, but must they be punished? Again, it depends on the type of relationship, right? And the understanding that both of you have, of all parties have within that relationship, the rules and regulations governing that relationship or that set of the boundaries matters. At the workplace, you have, the rules and regulations of the workplace that you need to respect. Those forms the boundary. And so if you break them, obviously there are going to be, um, yeah, you need to face whatever you need to face. Between spouses, well, I think it's between them to decide what they will do. But if they have to be punished, again, it's the understanding, and it's based on what exactly has been crossed or not respected. All right. The next one says, you can only be happy in a relationship if you get what you want. Here is where I would have loved to have more voices. Um, so you can only be happy in a relationship if you get what you want. Hmm. Again, I don't. That's my personal opinion. I don't think that is true. I don't think you can only be happy if you get what you want, because you have different parties in a relationship depending on the type of relationship, and everyone need to have their space, everyone need to have their place, and everyone need to feel safe, and everyone need to feel seen, and everyone is worthy of it. And so what makes a relationship, or yeah, any relationship, is give and receive. And if you get only what you want, that means you are only what? Receiving. You receiving, receiving. You are also not giving. And so when you are not giving and always receiving, remember that the person of whatever you are receiving from is definitely going to get tired one day, because they just keep giving. They just keep, you just keep pouring. And one day, even the reserve that they are on will dry, will run out. So getting only what you want is not what will make or keep the relationship. It is give and receive, not give and take. Give and receive, so that your both of you are always filling each other up. You are fueling each other. By your giving, you uplift, you fuel, you give energy, and the other can give more. And like that, that's how it works. That's what makes a relationship healthy. And so you cannot always get what you want, and the other can also not get always what they want. But at least you work together to try and fill each other up as much as possible and as soon as possible, so that you always have something to draw, as the other have something to draw when they need it. That is what, in my opinion, makes a happy relationship and a healthy relationship. But again, that's my opinion, as we all have our opinions. And this is the last statement. It says, in a good relationship, all parties must have the same interest. In a good relationship, all parties must have the same interest. Well, yes and no. To some level, yes, you must share common interests to keep each other and to keep the fire burning. You must share some common interests, obviously, otherwise, it becomes a problem. So you must share some common interests. But I also think it's interesting that you learn from each other when you at at some point you differ, so that you can learn, oh, this person shared this interest, this person shared that. Well, let me learn from them, or let me see, or I don't know why they like it, but they like it, so I'm just uh learning more from them, as they are liking what they are liking. And so what makes a good relationship is the ability to, not, even though you don't share the same interest, like that part of that interest that a person has, but you still support them, you still show up for them. That, I think, is it shows, or shows the character of the other party. But obviously you need to have some basic interests together to be able to build from there. If not, it becomes a problem. If all your interests are completely different, then it becomes a problem to find a common ground. So yes, you must have some common grounds, but it should not be all and completely and entirely the same before it can be a good relationship. Again, that's my opinion. All right, we have come to the end of the statement. um I went through this statement and I was really, it would have been interesting if we were more to um, have a good debate over it. But those are statements to like talk about what makes a relationship a good relationship and why boundaries are so important. And when can you say enough is enough if you yourself, you don't know where your boundaries or what your boundaries are? If you don't know them, how and when can you communicate effectively when your boundaries have been crossed? It's so important, excuse me, so important that we identify those things that triggers us, where our boundaries are. But before we can do that, we need to know ourselves, who we are, and how we can effectively communicate those boundaries. Remember, you need to have the same, you need to share um, understanding in those values that you hold dear so that you can be able to communicate them effectively. If the understanding is different, like respect, it becomes a problem. We all have different backgrounds and different upbringing, so it's very important to understand the culture of the other, what some certain values means, in order for you to be able to communicate effectively and be understood in that communication, and so that you will be able to build a strong, healthy relationship, no matter which relationship, and that you can communicate on time before you reach that cracking level that you say, okay, now enough is enough. All right, that was discovery time this evening. Today was very calm. I hope everything is all right because I really did not see much of you guys online today. Um, all right. Hope to see you all next week, and we will continue our discussion, maybe and hopefully with more people online and also on the live. Take care of yourself. Have a blessed evening and blessed week ahead. Good night. Bye bye.